Welcome back to another episode of Lady Justice Talks, where curiosity meets law. Today I have two beautiful ladies from the Women in Law Association. I have Gisselle and Maleeha.
Hey.
And as usual, I forgot to introduce myself. This is Susubi.
And Rubal.
Yeah, today's episode is actually really special. I know some people are watching on Spotify or listening on Spotify, but you can't see like the adorable little decorations that we have. That's for the holidays. And when I think of holidays, we always think of family gatherings and, you know, you just spend time with your family, right, guys?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, of course you have to agree with me. So, so our episode today is about how family upbringing could actually impact your decision in choosing law. So before we get right into our topic, I want you guys to actually introduce yourselves. So maybe Gisselle can go first.
Okay. So hi guys, I'm Gisselle. I am a fourth year law and society student, so hopefully finishing that up. I'm co-director of admin for Willa, and my background, I'm half Italian, half Lebanese, so
That's very interesting.
I love that reaction. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Welcome.
So I'm Maleeha, and I'm the vice president of events in Willa. My background, Pakistan, like all of my family has lived in Pakistan at some point in their lives, but yeah, and I've grown up with a lot of different variation in my life in terms of what is family, etc.
Okay, guys. So today we wanna you were talking about the family's upbringing. So you guys tell about your background and stuff. And okay, so how your family upbringing or family background affects you and how they make you to pursue the degrees you're pursuing right now. So
Yeah, we'll just jump straight to the point.
Oh,
like,
sure.
I know, like that's like the main question of the episode. We'll just
No,
jump
I love
straight to the
it. Get
point.
right into it. Do you want to go first?
Sure. So I mean, mine's pretty straightforward, I feel like. So although my mom's a family doctor and my dad's an accountant, so like nothing close to the realm of law there, but my grandfather, the one that still currently lives in Pakistan, he's actually a civil lawyer and has been working with for a long time with the Supreme Court of Pakistan and all kinds of stuff there, working at human rights, NGOs, charities. So when I was thinking of pursuing law, he has always been really big in my life of cultivating my passion for writing, and whenever I wanted to advocate for stuff, my dad would be like, "Oh my God, you sound like my dad." So, so yeah, that basically was my foundation.
Oh, I think that's a beautiful thing. I love it when people come from a background that's not necessarily, especially when it comes to law and STEM. I feel like there's this always this stigma that your parents are related to law or STEM, then you're gonna be related to law and STEM.
I really love that line she mentioned that my parents were so open and free, and my mom is doctor and my dad is accountant, but I'm completely different.
Yeah.
So that's I literally respect for that thing for the parents, they let the students do what they want to.
Yeah. How about you, Gisselle?
So I don't have any lawyers in my family. I haven't even family friends, no lawyers I've really been exposed to. This was more of just a personal choice for me. My mom's a nurse and my dad's in management, so it's obviously once again completely different.
Yeah.
The only thing that I can say is that my family's been really supportive. It's the whole thing of whatever you put your mind to, you can do, and I'm a firm believer in that. So I have a lot of support around me, which I'm really grateful for. But do they agree with the area of law I'm going into? Maybe not, but we'll get into that.
Oh, okay. We'll get into that.
We'll get into that.
Well, I think kind of adding, not adding off of it, but bouncing off that. I think when I was a kid, I wanted to be a doctor, right? Because I obviously saw my mom, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to be a pediatrician.
Right.
Up until grade 11. But my dad had always told me, because of the way I had been talking as a kid and stuff, oh, you should think about law. And I was always like, no way, why would I ever do law? And then look where I ended up. Like, he called that. Like, it was really crazy. Like, I was in grade 4 and I was like yapping about like the stuff I learned about Indigenous people in my grade 4 class and whatever, and like advocating. And my dad was like, "Have you ever thought about law?" And I was like, "No." And I'm not gonna think about law. Like,
I'm in grade 4.
that's not- yeah.
His manifestation. For
Yeah,
you.
no, it was actually
Yeah.
crazy how he called it. And I was like asking him like, "What made you think?" And he was like, "Oh, a feeling." And I'm like, "Oh,
Parents know.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
crazy."
I can add on this
Intuition.
one because I am not in the law right now, but it can be because it's corporate law or something. I'm in that accounting and commerce field. But a lot of people when they talk to me and they saw my personality, it's like, "Why you are accountant? You should be a lawyer.
Yeah.
You can present so well. You're so good in speaking and
Yeah.
stuff like that. You
Yeah.
should do that." And even for my side, my family is not even. My mom was she was doing something in arts and some creativity stuff, and my dad was like, he was not even that. He was even the business stuff. So nobody was in the law. Even I've been into the accountancy and business stuff, but I am the part of the villa because there was a moment in my life around my 8th or 9th grade. I get a mentor, and she has the background in the law. His grandfathers, all the ancestors was back in there. And when I used to go to her home for tutoring and mentoring stuff, and she'd show me all the stuff, and that makes me curious about the law. And I decided to keep it as another side goal or hustle for me, and that's why I am here. Like, kind of upbringing that I had, like my mentors, they did me and make me be the part of the villa or the law
No,
people.
I totally get it because I feel like representation is a big one. Like when you just like see someone in front of you doing something,
Yeah.
you can at least like have an idea of it. Because if that's the thing I feel when I say like, oh, a lot of people think if your parents are doctors, then you're gonna be a doctor because they don't really see anyone doing any other job. They think that's
Yeah.
like the limit. But when you see like mentors, that's a great like resource. Like if people could just like even reach out to people on LinkedIn and be like, oh, you're
Yeah.
a lawyer. What do you do? Do you like it? Like just
Yeah.
listening to a podcast like this and just like listening to people like having like getting insight. Really, I feel like
Yeah.
that's the main point.
And like, do you think, as we're talking about the people, that their families are doctors, so they want to be a doctor, some people believe to take the privilege.
Privilege is a big one. Actually, that's one of the questions I wanted to ask. Because, for example, when I think of privilege, for example, that's a philosophical question for sure. But do you guys think that wanting law and wanting justice and things like that is related to your privilege, like your upbringing? For example, if I'm from a like privileged background, I would assume, but I'm not. So probably I would assume that I would not want, I would not relate to social justice as much as a person who's actually from a marginalized group. So what do you guys think about that?
Okay, so I'm gonna kind of add on both of the questions. So relating back to Rubel's question of, do you think if you would stay within the family business or go outside? So for me, like that was never like, even when I wanted to become a doctor, it wasn't like, oh, because my mom's a doctor, it was never that kind of thinking for me. But I think that goes down to my core values I have as a person. I know some people value like familiarity. I know that if I have to pursue a career, I have to have something that I'm passionate about. Like I can't pursue a mundane job because I will not like put in my best effort into it, which is why I became a lawyer, because I am like very passionate about that. And then kind of adding to Susu's question about the privilege and how that comes to play, I think that also like will affect your morals and your ideas of why you're going into law. Like I don't think someone who comes from a privileged background won't necessarily go into law, because we know a lot of lawyers who do come from privileged backgrounds. Not saying that's bad, but like they do come from more privileged backgrounds, and like good for them. They might have different ideals of why they're going into law. For example, going into like corporate law for like dealing with money because that's something they've grown up around, like seeing the money dealing, investment, stocks, etc. Whereas like I know personally for me, I've wanted to go into like public interest law, human rights law, because of like my upbringing and how I grew up. So I think it might be like the reason they pursue law differs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good answer. How about you,
Yeah,
Gisselle?
I don't think like I'm gonna be so real. Like I can say I feel like I came from a privileged background, not like a super, oh my god, mama dad has got money, but like I'm saying privilege in the sense that I have the family, I don't have to worry about certain things, but I don't think that makes anybody more or less qualified to go into something like this, to go and pursue law. I just think your perspective changes. Like, the thing is, you don't have to have lived experience personally. You can see it affecting other people around you. Like, that's how I feel like got me here, because I saw it affect people very close to me. You know, I was lucky enough it didn't affect me directly, but the passion is still there. The drive is still there. It's not any more or less than somebody who has the lived experiences. And I think that's kind of like misconception a lot, even with like personal statements too. Like, talking to like pre-law students, they feel like they have to have this like huge story of like
trauma
a
dump
trauma dump in your personal statement. Like, I haven't written mine yet, but I think, like, you know, you don't have to have such like a traumatic event to happen to you to want to pursue this and to have such a passion for it, because I feel like I've seen it, yes, so maybe that is like a lived experience, but like, I don't know, people come and have different perspectives, so I think that's also good to have in like an occupation too.
No,
I
I
think
totally agree.
even
Sorry.
adding on to that, I think privilege is such a broad term.
Yeah.
Because, like, for example, socioeconomic privilege, like, alhamdulillah, I can say I was very privileged in that aspect. But I did experience a lot of, like, discrimination and stuff about, like, race or my religion as a kid, even though I grew up in such a well-off family, you know? Like, I think, like, there's, like, you know, the concept of intersectionality. Like, just because I'm well off socioeconomically doesn't mean that I'm gonna have, like, nothing in my backstory to make me want to pursue law. I think even adding on to Giselle's point, the fact that you're experiencing it through other people, like, that's a different section. Like, you're, like, experiencing empathy, and the fact that some people have higher empathy than others doesn't relate to the fact that you have maybe more so socioeconomic freedom than others, you know?
Yeah, totally. I actually, like, you guys know I'm in psychology, and I could just like apply this to like my own
Psychology.
I have to
She's
like
gonna
say this
psychoanalyze
fact. I
us.
have to say this fact every single
Again,
time I have an
viewers,
episode.
we're very sorry for this.
So, for me, like, for example, I would assume it's really nice to have a therapist who has gone through the same, like, you know, things that you've gone through, because you can feel like you relate.
Yeah.
But if I have a therapist who is completely, let's say, like, quote unquote privileged, because we said, like, we identify that as just like, it's such a broad term, and it just did not go through the struggles that I went through, but they're more capable of empathizing with me. That's even better. Like, especially in a field like law, for example, I think it's really important to be able to be objective. So maybe sometimes it would, like, if a privileged like person is your like lawyer, it could be even better sometimes, because there's not like this like emotional piece that could, you know, prevent you from pursuing the thing with like objectivity instead of you know, feeling it too much in a bad way. So yeah, I totally agree that like both of them are like that's why it was like it's a philosophical trick question,
Yeah.
because both of them are really valid perspectives that could, you know, matter in different ways. And I'm glad, Maleeha, you were talking about, like, you know, stereotypes and discrimination. So I was wondering if there's any stereotypes or assumption also for Gisselle, because yeah, I know, like, Gisselle, for example, you said like you're half Italian, half Lebanese, so maybe people will think about like the Italian part, forget about the fact that you're still a person of color. So is there anything or assumptions about your family background that affected your journey in law?
Honestly, like, look at me, like, you know, I'm privileged in the sense that you looking at me, you can't really notice anything, but like, you're a white girl. That's what it is, as sad as it is to say. So physically and like, you know, just looking at me, you haven't seen you haven't like faced any discrimination in that sense. But what it's funny about being half of something is that when you tell Italian people you're half Italian, it's like, that's not enough. You tell Lebanese people you're half Lebanese, it's not enough. Why did your dad marry an Italian lady? Why did your mom marry like a Lebanese guy? It's like you feel like so like lost in a way that like you're part of two amazing heritages, but like, can you really like claim one? They make it so difficult too. Like, that happens at work all the time. Like, I'll be like, oh, I'm half Italian, half Lebanese, and they'll be like Lebanese or like some sort of Arab, and they'll be like, oh, but you're half Italian? What happened there? And like they make a joke about it. It's never like I never take offense to it. It just like feels like I can never just
It's
be
a
like
microaggression.
Yeah,
Someone
it's a
could
little
say,
bit.
Someone could say something
Yeah.
that sounds nice, but at the same time, it could be like, you know,
Yeah, like
Yeah.
doesn't make you
yeah.
feel nice.
I don't know, but other than that, like honestly, like it just sucks because you want to embrace your heritage too, like in your culture. So that's the only part for me that like I wish didn't happen as often. Just being able to like preach what I want to preach about, you know, like what happened in Lebanon and stuff, you know.
Oh, yeah.
I know
Yeah,
this
I was
is
just
probably
gonna
going to be a
ask you,
bit
like,
later
how,
on.
how that impacted you in law itself. So you're saying like even talking like about or like being vocal about
Yeah.
some issues could be like limited because of this
Yeah,
assumption.
that's what it is. It's very like you're limiting my kind of voice at that point of advocating for, you know, at the end of the day, yeah, I'm going to say my people because my family comes from there. My dad's family comes from there. Italian people, my mom comes from there. Like, I don't know. I feel like because I'm not like solid blood or whatever, it's always been a thing for
It's
me.
sometimes heartbreaking when the people of your own community don't
Yeah,
accept
that's
you.
what it is.
Like, you're not like us.
Yeah.
But why? I have my mom from
Yeah.
that
And when you
background.
think about it, like, what's the purpose
Yeah.
of
What is
like
the
pushing
purpose?
someone away? Like,
And
if anything,
who
she's
are
trying
you
to be
give
vocal.
me this identity? Like, who are you? Like,
Yeah.
I know who I am. Like, you
Yeah.
are not one to say me, we are not accepting you.
Yeah,
Who are you to
exactly.
say that we are not accepting you, right?
And if anything, she's also using her side of the privilege. Again, I'm doing like quote
Yeah, I
unquote
know.
to actually be vocal about like issues in Lebanon. So
Yeah.
like I don't really understand like why someone would like push her away. So it's I'm
Yeah.
glad that you brought this perspective in. How about you, Maleeha?
I feel like mine's the opposite because you look at me and you're like, okay, she's not a white girl, like, you know, like obviously, and I've been wearing hijab since I was in grade 5, so it's not like it was like something recent. Like I've had a lot of people like I'm a visible Muslim, like, you know, you see
Yeah.
me and you're like, oh, she's Muslim,
Yeah.
right? And like I think when I was growing up, like obviously in grade 5 there wasn't as much like cultural sensitivity almost. Like, you know, people weren't like, oh, you know, we should be all about diversity and equity and stuff. Like that's only come like at least like since I was in high school. So like as a kid, like people, especially if you grow up in places where there aren't people from your background, there's a lot of assumptions there. Like for example, like when I started wearing hijab, I was in grade 5, right? Everyone off the bat at my school assumed like, oh, your dad made you wear hijab, right? And I'm like, no, like my dad like had no part in me wearing hijab. Like actually how I started wearing hijab, I was in Pakistan. We went to a convenience store. There were a bunch of like pretty like colored hijabs with like pink, purple, all of them had sequins and butterflies and flowers.
That was so tempting.
Right?
It was like,
And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna wear that. And then my dad was like, but what are you gonna wear it? Like, right? And then I was like, okay, I'll become a hijabi. And I bought a bunch of those at those convenience stores and started. Like, that was how I started my hijab journey.
yeah.
Right? And everyone is always like, oh, but isn't your dad making you wear that? And I'm like, no, not at all. My sister, she's in grade 9 now. And like, obviously we grew up with the same parents, same background, everything. She hasn't started wearing hijab yet. But there's like the assumption that, oh yeah, your family made you wear that. So
Yeah.
I feel like I've had a lot of assumptions like that, or like even like being brown, like had assumptions, oh, you're definitely going into medicine, right? Because like brown people do medicine.
Yeah.
And I'm like even though my mom does it, I was like, no, I want to do law. Or like people like look at me and they're like, you seem like you do medicine. And I'm like, what do you think? Like, what about me makes you think I want to do medicine? Like, was it just a inherent like bias from inside you? Or did you think, oh, she's brown and hijabi, she wants to like do medicine because she's a caring, nurturing person, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
People don't understand. Sorry to interrupt you, but let me just say
yeah.
one thing. People don't understand how bad it is to have like, I guess the opposite of like they think it's the opposite of like a bad assumption, which is just like the expectation. They're like, oh, you should be like going into medicine because you are this specific race. And I even remember like there was this. It was Asian Heritage Month, and a speaker was talking about her experience. And she was talking about how just like the expectation or the assumption that like, oh, Asian people are good at math or this
Yeah.
this assumption that I don't want like
Biggest
I don't want to
stereotype,
say
yeah.
it because like I don't want to like affirm it. And she talked about something that made me notice that, oh, I didn't realize that. I thought like it's a compliment back then I wasn't really educated on these things.
Yeah.
That like, oh, people think that Asian people are smart. That's nice. Being good at math is a good thing. But then I realized that it puts this amount of pressure on Asian people who are not good at math. Like if you're good at math, sure, but if you're not good at math, then I'm not like Asian enough. Just like Gisselle was talking about, like
it's
not
so
being enough.
silly.
Same thing. Like if you're brown or if you're Pakistani, it doesn't mean, oh, I should be a doctor. So if I'm not a doctor, then I'm not Pakistani enough. Like does it like just take
Yeah.
away my identity or something?
Yeah.
Go ahead. You.
So actually, because the way I feel Maleeha and I share the same kind of background. So like only not it being like Pakistani or hijabi, you've been through the discrimination. Ever you feel like being in the family, being a daughter of the family, you've been through something like they make, or like not even the family sometimes, but the societies or even the uncles, and I don't want to say that, but like your daughter should be a teacher, just go to the elementary school, just teach the kids and be like a motherly mom. And that's like that, being a daughter of the family. Have you been through that situations though?
Yeah, no, it's definitely, I think people assume like, oh, because you're like, you know, like you're a woman, you're more nurturing and stuff, why aren't you doing like teaching, doctor, nurse, whatever? And it's like, but like, what about law isn't inherently feminine? Like, you know, like why am I, a woman, not allowed to pursue the legal field? And I think even adding on to what Susu was saying about how when she was a kid she didn't know, I think a lot of like people grow up with these like, and it's like not necessarily their fault, it goes back to the idea of family, about how when you grow up with your family and you're seeing these ideas that are just brought into your family, you like view them as normal. Like I know like when I was a kid, obviously the kids at school like discriminated against me a lot, like a lot of microaggressions and stuff. But like I was in grade 5, grade 6, grade 7. Obviously these kids aren't like inherently racist. They like were just born, like came out of the womb and they were like, whoa.
That's all they know.
Yeah,
at that
it was
point.
like they were raised like that way, and it's like you can't even blame them fully, you know. Like I remember like I wanted to join the robotics team at my school because I went to a school where it was like all about academics. So the robotics team was like the, you know, the cheerleading.
Yeah,
it
there
was
you
like,
go.
oh, you're a cool kid if you're in robotics, right? And my friends had like an out of school robotics club. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to join that, right? And then I'm going to be super cool at robotics. And everyone's going to be like, wow, Maleeha, you're so smart.
Yeah.
Damn, okay, right? Like that's what I thought.
That teenage, you have like youth blood. I want to do that.
Literally. So I wanted to join that group, and then one of the people in my friend group, like, so these were the people I considered my best friends at the time, but they were like, oh, Maleeha, you can't join because you know how Asian parents are. You don't know what they don't know what you're gonna do with like metal parts and stuff. And I was just like let's think critically, guys. Like I'm I'm wearing pink hijabs with sequins and sparkles. And you think I'm gonna do like whatever with it?
That's the thing. Even if you
Yeah,
wear
even
it,
if
you're a student at the
School,
facility,
and it's
you are joining a club.
Like your style doesn't like consider what your skills are.
No, and it's like it's obviously like this was a person I considered my friend at the time, so I don't think it was a maliciously meant comment. It was like something that they were just stating a fact, like you know how Asian parents are, and I was like internally thinking like I'm also Asian, I'm Pakistani. What do you mean you know how Asian parents are? I'm Asian. I have Asian parents, so I wasn't quite sure what they meant by the comment, but I later brought it up, and they were like, oh, no, it's not like that, you know? But, like, what do you mean it's not like that? But obviously that was not something that, like, they were just inherently bad. It's something they've brought up with those ideas. Like, obviously, the parents were like, oh, you know, Maleeha, she's, like, one of those people, you know? Like, you don't know, right? And so it's obviously those ideas that are being perpetuated within the family.
You see, that's the thing, because we're talking about, like, family upbringing, and we kind of have, like, you know, you guys have, like, beautiful families, from what I've heard. I'm glad that you do.
You have good background.
Very, like, supportive family, and
Yeah.
very, you know, like, when we're talking about, like, family upbringing, we're not like only talking about them having expectations on you in terms of, like, law and stuff like that, like direct, like, oh, get into this or get into that, but also in their values as well. So
Yeah.
it seems like you guys are raised up by amazing parents who actually, like, you know, implemented values of fairness and justice.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, not all family upbringing is like that.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the people who told you whatever they said, I'm not even
Yeah.
repeating.
Yeah.
I'm in my pissed position now.
Yeah.
So I'm pissed off now. But these people, the kids, obviously, like, they're just kids.
Yeah.
But they had such kind of upbringing or mindset
that
back
impacted
in
them
home.
negatively.
That's why
Yeah.
they're saying
Yeah.
that thing in social, like to you, to the people.
Yeah.
And even it's kind of stereotype, like you mentioned, like Asian parents gonna be this. I back from South Asia. I would say I'm the first generation kid from the family who just come out to for educating, forget education and stuff like that. So even if it's, parents are living their first life as well, and they make the stereotype like Asian parents are this. Not everybody is the same.
Yeah. Like, even adding on to that, like, I think there are stereotypes about like immigrant parents, and like obviously some of them, like a lot of the experiences are the same, but everyone assumes like me and my dad aren't close because, you know, immigrant parents, dads are angry or whatever. That's the stereotype. And it's
Yeah.
like me and my dad, like I know my dad's watching this, so shout out to you.
Shout out to
to
Dad.
my mom.
I'm
Yeah.
literally
Right?
making this episode just so I can tell mom to watch it later.
No.
Yeah.
Shout out to my parents, but me and my dad are very close, and it's
Yeah.
like I really love that relationship with him because truly I go to him with everything. And everyone's like, "Oh my god, but your dad is a brown immigrant like man, Muslim man who grew up in Pakistan, so you know, like the global south or whatever."
Yeah.
And you're like talking about what your dreams and aspirations are, and you're talking about your social life with him, and oh, he's okay with you like doing podcasts or being in
Yeah.
Women in Law. And I'm like, yeah, my dad follows Women in Law. I do an Instagram takeover today.
Yeah.
I told my parents they're gonna ask questions for me to
Yeah.
post on. They're like
so
that.
cute.
So it's like I feel like, yeah, there are like some stereotypes that may hold true to some people, but I know like I really hate it when people are like, oh, but don't you have issues with your dad? And I'm like, no, like me and my
What
dad,
did my dad do to you?
besties. Like,
Yeah.
Actually, I
Yeah.
totally don't get like the whole why are you so close?
Yeah.
Like I just don't relate to it.
Yeah.
Like I know
Yeah.
like Maleeha was talking about like the idea of like being an immigrant. I'm an immigrant with my mom. We're both like immigrated together, and she's my ride or die. Like I'm literally talking like oh yeah, knock on wood. I don't want to be jinxed with her, but I swear to God, I don't understand when people are wondering how you are close with your family. You work on this.
Yeah.
It doesn't just happen. They work on it very hard. My mom, I'm 100% sure like I went through like the whole teenage thing
Yeah.
and I was getting like, you know, going through it. But you just don't give up on your, like if there's something like if I'm gonna sound wise and give advice, I'll be like, don't give up on your kids and also don't give up on your parents.
Yes. Don't give up on your parents.
Work very hard. It's also their first time living this life, and you know, sometimes you just gotta work on the relationship, and then it becomes something beautiful that people are just wondering, how are you? Like people should wonder, how are you not close with your parents? That's just the normal. That should be the normal trend.
Yeah, this is the result what they get, because as of being a parent, a busy parent, they gave us the time, and that's why we're close to them. And this is the what they want. That's why parents give time, because we can connect with they can connect with the kids, and they did.
Exactly.
And they want in the life because they get closer to the kids. So it's not like being a daughter and like a father duo and daughter duo. What two people are these closer? That like should be mom and daughter only. So why it's like that? But like because our parents give us good time, they're together with us.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think the whole should, like quote unquote should, is the problem,
Yeah.
because there shouldn't be like these limitations of like, oh, your gender and in relation to like which parent or whatever.
Yeah.
Like we're not Sigmund Freud, like please.
Yeah.
We're just talking like healthy relationships
Yeah.
with the entire family too, because you know
Yeah.
sometimes people don't really have close relationship with their parents, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But you know sometimes you can just even like, you know,
Siblings,
have your own, like,
aunts,
support
uncles,
system.
grandparents,
Yeah.
who knows?
Exactly.
Like adopted family, you know, like the family you choose. Like as
Exactly.
long you choose your family, and like if you have a great family at home, like that's great for you. And if you don't, and you have a chosen family of like close friends and close friends and people who supported you through your entire life,
Yeah.
like that's amazing. Like both of those are amazing scenarios.
I was gonna say that because you know how you mentioned your story earlier.
Yeah.
Let's say like these children's parents just stay the same way they are with these values their entire lives. I would assume, like, I don't want people to think if you're born with parents or like you have this family upbringing that's not really like, you know, fair to other people or doesn't really value like fairness, that doesn't mean, oh, that's inevitable, I will have to be this way too. No, you can just choose people who are like, just even being friends with someone like Maleeha. Like
Yeah.
that's
Please.
that's just enough to just like have like this support system with the person who actually like, you know, is making sense with their values, because sometimes people don't, and that's totally fine.
No, and I think you
It
can like
doesn't even mean just leave your parents back home.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not even mentioning that
Yeah.
thing.
No, but it's like you can also like have people who like have raised you and they're your like father and mother figure. Like when I was at home, my parents were like pursuing, like when I was younger, my parents were out pursuing like, you know, the Canadian dream, like, you know, like getting their hours in, getting their money in, like all that. My mom was in med school when I was born. So obviously I was raised by a Filipino nanny. And then I was at Taekwondo full time, like at the dojang, like always. So I've been in Taekwondo since I was 2.5. And so like my mother figure at the time was my Filipino nanny. I'm not Filipino in any way, but she was the one who raised me for that time period of my
It's
life.
connections,
Right?
from heart to heart.
Or like my Taekwondo master holds a special place in my heart too. Not that it takes away from my relationship with my dad or my mom, but those two people also shape me into the person I am. So just because you don't necessarily have the best relationship with your real parents, I'm sure there's some mentor, some person in your life who has helped shape you into who you are today. And I think you can still hold just as special relationships with them.
Very
Yeah.
true. Grandparents are a big one too. I feel like for me, like me and my mom aren't. Hi, Mom. We're not as close if she's watching this. But you know, that's not to take away from how close I am with the rest of my family. You know, especially my grandparents when they were around. Like, you know, those are such, you know, those memories will last forever. And they also raised you too. So even if, you know, you don't have those mentors with you in your adult life, just like they're still around in your heart and all that. We're getting real sappy.
What's the English phrase? With you in spirit?
Yeah, with you in
With
spirit.
you in spirit, right?
Yeah, you're asking
Whatever
an
you
immigrant,
guys
dude. I was like,
Yes.
yeah.
No, but it's like even like I know like people sometimes, because I live on residence too, and they're like, oh, you're hijabi and brown and your parents are immigrants. How did they let you live on residence?
Like, what's
And
the
I'm
problem?
like, but it's like I like have a relationship of trust with my parents, you know? And so I think that's also like something that's important. Like you can like always invest time into your relationships with your chosen family, with your family, to make sure that you have that ground. Like I don't think that it's necessarily all about like, oh, like this is the dynamic we're gonna have. Like me, even though I live on campus and my parents are at home like a 3-hour commute away, and my mom calls me sometimes like during the week and we have 1-hour calls. And it's just us yapping together. She tells me about her day. I tell her about my day. And, you know, but it's just that relationship of trust. And I think that can be cultivated even in your adult life. If you weren't the closest with your parents as a kid, that doesn't matter because you can always cultivate that further.
And you see, all of this, although we've been talking about like family a lot, but all of this actually relates to law. Because you're gonna sit with a client for what, an hour? I don't know, you're the law people. But you're gonna sit with a client for an hour and you're supposed to build trust. You're supposed to build this like relationship of trust. You build rapport. Is that how you say it? Rapport? Yes. So
Okay, yeah.
how
No clue.
Yeah.
We're not there. We're not that far yet.
We're not English
So,
majors.
Yeah. You're supposed to build all of this.
Yes.
You sometimes need to have like this with your like within yourself and within your relationships as well to be able to also build it.
Yeah.
That's what I
Yeah.
believe at least.
I
And
honestly.
sometimes with
yeah.
these relationships are so unconditional, like not even the family or the parents or the family you adopted, like your friends. And when you start, you're not talking for like a long week or something, like the months or something. And whenever you call back or somewhere, and like you told them the weekends or somewhere, whenever you want, and you start the conversation where you left last
Yeah,
time.
where you left
Yeah.
off. Yeah, that's a
Such
beautiful
kind
thing.
of unconditional thing, and they were never like, you didn't talk to me for a month, where you was, you forgot me, like something like that, which they're so unconditional and such kind of connection. When you just talk to them, they just, whenever you call them, and they start from whenever you left. Okay, you're back, let's have a conversation, right? It's kind of such a connection and trust we made, not even with the family, but even the adopted family we made it. Like, you live in the residence, you have so many friends. You will get some, like, you have some friends on campus, you feel that such kind of connections with them, though.
Yeah, I know you wanted to say something, or
I was gonna say on what you were saying, like back to, you know, this all relates back to, you know, if you wanted to be a lawyer or, you know, any sort of profession in the legal field. The whole thing is that for me, I think empathy is a big part of, you know, the law too, because I did an internship, at a law firm last summer, and honestly, it was a family law firm, and this really like affirmed everything for me. But the way she carried herself with clients, it wasn't just, oh, they're in, I'm gonna write down whatever they're saying, I'm gonna bill them for my hours, and that's it. No, you have to sit down and express how you're feeling and take that into with how other people are feeling. You know, you have to have that sense of empathy for them. The whole thing is that, you know, growing up in my household, it was a bit more strict, and like feelings were not talked about. Emotions are still not talked about, and they're often like frowned upon. And I feel like in a professional setting, like it's seen as unprofessional to take that, you know, emotional connection to it. But you know, if I ever become a lawyer, fingers crossed, that's what I want to bring to it. Like, you can't have a family law case and be completely shut down and be cold about it. I know people are always saying, no, that's what you say now, but you'll get to it. No, I will not allow myself to get to the point where people are just numbers. People are just clients. Like, no, like you have to build that relationship with the trust too, because you build that trust with family, yes, but in like a family law proceeding, you have to build trust with your client, and they have to trust you. So it just goes back to how you were brought up. Like, I wasn't brought up speaking out about, you know, emotions and stuff like that, but I'm the person I am today because I saw how important it is and how the lack of that.
Yeah, no, I think it all goes back to what being human is.
Yeah.
And like being human is just a collection of your experiences, like everything that you've went through in your life, everything you've consumed, the media, everything like that, and how that has all become like a mosaic of your identity. Like I saw a quote once, like it was like I am the person I am today because, and then it's like my best friend like peeled oranges all in one piece, so now I peel my oranges in one piece, you know? Have you guys seen that stuff?
My friend does that, shout out to her.
Yeah, so it's like like all of these little things you pick up from various people, all these emotions, all the things that remind you of certain people. Like part of being human is that connection with people, like the connections with your friendships, strangers you meet on the street. Like, have you ever seen a person and you're like, that's a cool hairstyle, like look at my hair today, that's a cool hairstyle, I'm gonna try that hairstyle, right? Like
a lot of times,
right? It's like the fact that you guys can connect on these individual experiences, the moments where your lives collide, even if it's just for a second. Like that 1 second can impact your entire life. Like as lawyers, you are human first and foremost. Like before you are a lawyer, you are human.
Main thing. Because I feel like a lot of people think like, oh, people in law, they just want money. Like they, all of these connections you're talking about, they're just making like, I would rather just connect with money. But the thing is, when you take it like from the heart and like from the emotions, that's a whole different you know, purpose of life. Right? It changes your purpose.
Yeah, I know. I hope as a lawyer, like I become like when I'm in like whatever, like my 60s, inshallah, if I make it that long. When I'm a lawyer, I hope to be like the lawyer I am that day because of all the individual cases I had, all of the individual proceedings, all of the clients, all the trials. I hope to be the lawyer that has come through all of that and just made myself stronger on these experiences. Like that's, I think, what we should be doing, like constantly learning, you know?
Yeah. I know you were talking about like family law and like a bunch of like, you know, specializations, and I think you mentioned it earlier actually, but we can't sugarcoat it. Yes, your families are great, but sometimes family hold views that oppose yours when it comes to like controversial issues. For example, criminal defense, immigration rights, abortion cases, like a long list, really. So how would you guys navigate these differences in career? Would you just consider avoiding all of these?
You can see this being sugar-coated, generational gap. To make it more sugar-coated.
A generational gap. So I guess we can say that. My whole thing is that some people in my family, we're Christian, so the whole thing is that divorce is very frowned upon. Divorce is not the answer. It's shameful. It's bad. You can't even go get remarried in a Catholic church. Like, I don't agree with it. And sometimes me and some family members clash on that. These are like dinner conversations, okay? Let's keep that in mind.
I can just visualize.
Like me just at the table. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, No, but I try, obviously, I want to go into family law and like I want to be a divorce lawyer too, right? That's a whole portion of it. And, there's people in my family that are saying, like, why do you want to go around such negativity? Yes, at first it could be negative. It could be a toxic space, but having one toxic space for a child versus having two loving spaces can be completely different. Like, one home doesn't have to be the answer. And I feel like that's the whole thing of, like, you can say generational gap because, they are a bit older. Like, divorce was, frowned upon for their generation. So now they're not really understanding that it is sometimes
It's
the
normal.
only option here too. Like, there are toxic, abusive households. Why do you want a child? I've seen what it does to a child. Like, why do you want to force somebody to grow up in such a negative environment when instead you can just have two healthy homes, right? Like, that's the whole thing, right? And we go back and forth on it. So for me, like, family values and, like, a religious standpoint too, like, I'm not going to take that with me. I can't possibly take that with me because of what I want to do and what I want to pursue. But, some people in my family are slowly getting into it, like, shout out. But it takes time to also get used to because of what they grew up on, right?
No, I think even adding to that, like, the reason why my family, like, knew I was going into law, my dad says, is because I have been speaking about, like, random human rights issues since I was in, like, grade 2. Like I mentioned earlier about the Indigenous thing, like, when I was in grade 4, that was not hugely talked about. Now we have all the truth and reconciliation stuff. People are talking about it more. Obviously, reparations are nowhere close to where they need to be.
Yeah.
I want to establish that. Like, right now we're filming it before Truth and Reconciliation Day or Orange Shirt Day. I think it's Wednesday, Truth and Reconciliation
I think so,
Day.
yeah.
But obviously we're nowhere close to where they need to be, so I want to make sure I'm not saying,
Yeah.
we're all good now. But when I was in grade 4, man, like, no one was talking about it. And then I remember going home or on the car ride home from school with my dad, I was mentioning, like, I think it's, like, so unfair that we're, like, treating, like, these people this way when they've been on the land first. And my dad was like, oh, but they don't pay taxes. And I was like, and right, and so no, but then I remember, like, having that discussion with him, and I was, like, trying to get across the point, like, it's not about them not paying taxes when they were on the land first, like, and just these ideas. But eventually, my dad, like, and I'm not gonna say that everyone's gonna, like, change their mind magically. Like, the world doesn't work like that. But I know my dad was receptive to it. Some family members, I think you said, were receptive to your ideas of family law. I think some people will be receptive to that. So I know, like, for example, the Indigenous issues. I know, for example, I used to talk about what was happening in Sudan way a while ago, and then my family opened up about it. Or buying from small businesses rather than big corporations. I've been doing that since, like, grade 7. And then my family picked up on that after, and then they're like, oh yeah, we always loved that. I was like,
you're welcome. Yeah, good.
No, but it's
I
like,
can even add on this, not not in my family, but like I saw with my cousin and stuff. So there's some kind of stereotype, not the stereotype, but the generational gap. Like dating more than 2 or 3 people. You shouldn't date a lot of guys. Then it's like being a daughter. You shouldn't be loud. Like, being a daughter should be calm and so then there's, like, I don't know about this, but there's a rule back in India, the property is, like, divided equally between son and daughter, but the society they make the daughters to feel like you're taking your dad's property. It's not fair. So, like, not for the boy, but, like, as a woman or as a daughter of the family. So these are the few of the generation gap coming from these generation like us. I was like, what? The property is equal. We don't even make the property. You are self-reliant and independent. But if you're thinking about that thing, so why just, like, being a boy or being a girl of the family, you need a property, or you don't need a property? Like,
I'm glad that you mentioned, like, this idea of, like, gender, because I guess I wasn't gonna, like, talk about this, but I guess I can talk about, like, back home for me. So I'm from Egypt, and there's something, like, you just reminded me of, like, this whole thing with gender, because that's, like, really the essence of, like, family, I think, because you're gonna be interested in this, because you're interested in family. I'm just like, just looked at me and just,
wow,
like,
she's
staring into my
talking
eyes now.
We're falling in love.
Oh my god, okay. Not now. So off camera. So there's this whole thing, back to serious, this whole thing, a law in Egypt, actually. If you walk into, if a husband walks into his wife, and finds her cheating, and he kills her, it's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
Because we have like something called like it's a culture of honor, and that's the understanding. That's okay. I understand that so far.
Okay.
If a woman walks onto her husband cheating and she kills him, she goes to jail.
No.
Yeah.
It's literally right now.
Because the
in this
culture of
21st
honor
century,
apparently is only in the male.
Only
Which
men
is-
have honor, guys. Sorry,
Yeah,
none of us are
apparently.
honorable.
So yeah, that's like one of the crazy things. Because when you talk about like the gender, like being a boy and or a girl, which one needs like the property more, or whatever.
Yeah.
This thing just like sparked me because I was like, how is this still a law in Egypt? And we're
Yeah.
considered relatively an
Then we can
open-minded-ish
add more
country.
on this.
That's
Women can't do
crazy.
the more than one marriage, but men are some countries allowed to marry more than one
Yeah,
time.
multiple, and have multiple
Wives,
too.
multiple
It's-
partners. You can
Yeah.
add on that thing
Yeah.
as well. If you, I have no idea about that thing. Like where's the specific country?
Yeah, it's a
But,
very
like,
specific
Well,
law that
that's
only Egyptians
yeah.
know of.
I bet nobody like who's gonna listen to that really knew that unless they are
yeah.
Egyptian.
That's the
so
thing.
that's great.
It's very
They
it's
brought it
It's
up.
crazy.
like, why don't consider the murder thing? There's no like honor of men or women or being cheated or not cheated. But what about the murder of a human? The man killed the wife.
The thing is, like I would understand because in Egypt, like if you are in a because cultures are different. So if you're in a culture that says that cheating is such a bad thing that a person deserves a life sentence and that somehow you don't need to go to court and you can do it yourself, sure. Which is
Is it-
really weird, but sure.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it, at least do it fairly.
yeah.
Like
Is it
If it's gonna
in
be
the charter or
that
the
messed up.
constitution? It is literally in the books. Like,
yeah, it is. It's
because the law, I'm talking about the property. We have the law in the constitution. The property should be divided equally, but this is a society made the people not to be follow that things like no, daughter should not be the part of the property and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But I'm just okay.
yeah, that's
Is it-
so that's like
Is it
for
the
me.
books
Oh,
right
yeah.
now?
Yeah, it's in the books, and I'm pretty sure a lot of Egyptian amazing Egyptian women and lawyers are trying to change it because it's
good.
insane.
Amendment, yeah.
At least to make it illegal for the man also to kill the wife. I'm not saying okay make it illegal for the woman to kill the
Yeah.
husband, but at
Yeah.
least make it illegal for
Yeah,
both.
but-
But yeah, that's one of the insights of how you would think of the worst thing that could happen here from a Christian background is getting a divorce when literally in another country it could be just oh, am I gonna get killed or no? Stay tuned.
Yeah.
That's actually crazy.
Stay
so, so
Yeah.
that's a big thing about
Even I'm thinking there's
craziness.
something come to my mind about the education as well, because in some households, as we're talking about the honor and stuff before wrapping up, there's some people always also said that you don't deserve these things or the honor from the family because they are feeding you, they're making you educated, this.
that's
they're-
the role of the family. Sorry, whenever
Yeah.
someone says
So
that,
some people
Yeah.
are like, you don't deserve it. If you're asking for honor, you're asking for property, you're asking for this, your family's already let you go to school. But that's a right.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
you're just
Exactly.
giving
No, I
them
think-
permission.
Nothing.
I think even adding on to that, alhamdulillah, I'm very lucky in fact that
Yeah.
the fact that my family in Pakistan is very
Thanks, parents.
shout out.
Yeah.
Shout out to my grandfather. I love him lots. He's the reason I'm going
Thanks
into
to
law.
Mom and dad, everybody. Thank you so much.
I don't think he can. He's probably not going to listen to this, but maybe my dad will
gonna
clip
make
it for him. But I think a lot of Pakistani culture where there's education isn't as important for the women because they're going to be bearing children and doing housework and stuff. So not necessarily the fact that they're not supposed to go to school, but if people need help at home, you need your family's not necessarily well off and you need help with cooking and cleaning, the person who's gonna stay home is
Gonna
gonna
be
be
a
the daughter,
daughter.
not
Yeah,
the
yeah,
son,
yeah.
because the son
Yeah.
is more important. And obviously there's
More important.
right, and this is I want to also separate culture and religion
Yes.
because I know some people just assume this is Islamic and no, that's not
There's
not
no-
Islamic.
cultural.
We
It's-
both
it's
come-
just
we
cultural.
both come from different religion, different culture, but it's not even the culture, it's not even the religion, it's the society and the some
Yeah.
mindsets that make the situation.
Yeah,
like
no,
that.
so it's it's
not all even the parents are like this.
Yeah, no, because I know my family, my grandfather, and he was born in 1930s, so way back.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
he's right. So And so he's like obviously a brown man born and raised in Pakistan, but he was always super huge on the women in my family getting an education, not even the direct like descendants of him, like as in his kids and grandkids, but like my mom who married into the family, he was the one like encouraging her to become a doctor when they were like just like, because when my parents married, they weren't like, my mom wasn't a doctor yet. So he was the one encouraging her, who was like sending letters. They were talking about it. In fact, my grandfather supported and like talked to her more than my mom and my dad were talking to each other.
That's amazing.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, it's like not necessarily always like the, like obviously it doesn't apply necessarily to me, but culture is huge on like these stereotypes and like, like the, what's it, who, there's a word for this. Who is gonna get the opportunity?
I
You
love
know
how
what
she
I
always
mean?
looks at me like the only immigrant. She's just like looks at me. And
Okay,
she's
guys.
Like, yeah, you're gonna know
there's
this
a
one."
word
Yeah.
for this.
Okay.
There's a word for this. I don't know what. Maybe Isra will edit it and see like, oh yeah,
chance?
this is what
No, I'm
Maleeha was
literally
This
thinking.
is what she meant.
Yeah,
Right up here.
above. But yeah, it's like the access to opportunities is sometimes cultural, it's sometimes impacted by your family. Like, if like you're a person who had to cut off their family because they weren't like encouraging you to go into law, like I have so much respect for you because that's so difficult. And like just it's such a whole host of the pressures that society puts on you, your family, your culture, all of that. So if you're doing that, shout out to you because it's actually scary out there. Like the pressure on women to like do certain things, become certain careers, you know, it's just outrageous.
Yeah.
To do all of that, you know, maintain a career and, you know, be professional, but also, you know, continue to be that nuclear idea of like what a woman should be too. It's so difficult. So whether it's like law or any other profession, or even if you're not decided yet, like good on you for at least having a thought that, you know, you're gonna do something with your life, whether people like it or not.
Yeah.
Yes, well, it's time to wrap up.
Yeah. With that being said, are you guys? You feel heard? Everything.
I feel heard. Yes.
Are you guys feeling like
Yeah. If there's anything else you want to add on.
Let's make a heart.
Let's make one. Wait, can we just do
oh
like
wait,
a-
wait, wait, let me
Oh, why
ask.
don't you guys do the big heart and we'll do the
With
small
that
heart.
being said,
With that being said,
this wraps up this episode of Lady Justice Talks, and you guys can wait for us for another episode. And yeah, Happy New Year!
Bye bye. Happy New Year.